Tecmos' Deception Invitation to Darkness is a first-person adventure role-playing game that was released by Tecmo in 1996 for the PlayStation that would end up becoming the first in a very popular series of horror-based RPG games that originally started off life in Japan and would later be ported to North America and Europe. And truthfully, this would be one of the first true role-playing games that really made massive appeal amongst fans, because back then RPG games, while they were very good, there was only a handful of games that really stood out on the likes of consoles of the time, because even over in audiences over here in Europe, it took quite a while for us to really adapt and to warm to these type of games. But I think this was one of the first to implement those concepts that mixed both first person, RPG and even horror into the experience. Very few games before that ever really managed to do that and do it to a good degree. And with that being said, when the game did release, it was met with critical success with reviewers praising its originality and the game's concept, because it is very dark, gritty, it is scary, it's very atmospheric. There's a lot to do, a lot to explore. While the majority of the combat in the game, you can't really freely move around and just hit everything at will. Everything is usually like turn based, where you have to like set traps and you have to use elements of strategy in order to defeat your enemies or to trap them, and pretty much your choices define different outcomes, because you can choose to trap them or you can choose to kill them and take their souls, which will result in changing the concept of the story later on, which does add that unique element but also adds to the replayability of the experience as well. Like, as you explore through the game, there are loads of different puzzles, and some of them aren't as apparent in the beginning. Sometimes you have to defeat enemies in order to acquire a key. Sometimes you just have to defeat enemies in order to open up a new area to explore that may not require anything but just require certain parameters to be met. But there's also loads of hidden secrets, like hidden rooms. There's even rooms that appear like through walls that you wouldn't even know were there. It's a very cool and interesting game. It's very unique, and right, there was sequels after it, but they played from a third person perspective where the camera was behind the player, more so with this one. But people fondly remember this as much as any of the other games in the series, because with it being first person, it's equally the most immersive of the experiences to be had, especially during this time period. So even though the plot being set as it is, it sees you in the role of a young prince who has returned to his homeland and was engaged to be married, but he also finds out that his younger brother aims to take on his place in the throne and uses destructive methods by murdering his own bride-to-be and blaming him for the murder, which results in him being sentenced to death, because the younger brother's aim was to take over the kingdom any way possible, so he showed his true colours. So essentially he was framed, but upon your death you are pretty much transformed into like a limbo state where you end up meeting with a demonic creature, and he gives you the ability to get revenge. But in order to do that, you have to complete a variety of different tasks for him, which sees you being taken to a distinctive mansion that is haunted, but that is also home to a lot of other demons and spirits. But people keep wandering in from the real world and trying to find treasures within, and also trying to figure out what's going on. So your goal is literally to hunt down everybody that's getting in the way, and either by trapping them or taking their life. So you have to make that tough choice, which again will result in the progression of the overall story. So it is a very interesting concept. There's a lot to do. The fact is that the game was met with a lot of positive reception upon its release, stating that they really liked the graphics, the gameplay, the originality of the gameplay ideas as well. It was one of the first main RPG games to really be seen as popular during the time, and it is often highly regarded even to this day as one of the best in its genre. Definitely one to try. I put a bit of time into this, even at recording this video, and I did mention it in a previous video where I looked at a lot of different types of horror games that were released on the PlayStation. I'll leave a link below in the description so you can go and check that one out. And it is a very interesting game, I'm not going to deny that. It's definitely one that will require players to put a lot of time into, so if this is something you want to get into, you're going to have to be ready to put time into it, let's just put it that way. But it's well worth it in the long run, it really is. Very solid game, very reflective of its time, but at the same time this game would also prove to be that popular that it would set the foundations for a lot of other games of a similar type to come after it. This would be one of those games that in many ways ways will be influential to the future success of horror games moving forward, so it's definitely worth a try. And I would love to hear your thoughts of Tecmos Deception, and what did you think of it overall? Is this a game that you genuinely enjoyed playing back in the day? Did you know anything about it, or is it something that you would really want to try? I'd love to hear whatever thoughts you do have of this game, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around other unique, quirky games like Tecmos Deception that was also released on the PlayStation, you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and you can check out this playlist here on screen to see a lot more of those games in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.